I was present on the Tesco's protest last Thursday morning. I set out my placard. Shortly after that, my friends arrived, other supporters of the protest, with other placards and posters. The police came in numbers and confiscated all of our placards and signs, which was an illegal thing for them to do. They had no legal right to do so. It was our property. After that, obviously, things got a little bit heated with people. And before we had time to calm down and recover from that, we had half a dozen or so riot vans come driving up the road.
On Thursday, I was in a local cafe, we were praying actually, and came out and there was just loads of vehicles outside, about 6 ambulances pulled up outside the cafe, and then just loads of police vans started arriving, and really had no idea what was going on.
Police had information that they considered to be reliable, that somebody had a petrol bomb on the roof of this squat where we're sitting and was prepared to use it. So when they showed up here at about 9 o'clock in the evening, I think it is important to realise it wasn't an eviction.
About 9 o'clock on Thursday, I looked out the window and expected to see just a couple of police officers, a couple of vans to kind of come up and say, look, lads, we're here to kind of get you out of the property. But when I looked out the window, there was 9 riot vans, 50 police, 2 horseback. They blocked the road off at both ends, and there was a helicopter just for 4 people. And they just rammed the door open, burst in, and they all had riot gear on with shields, and just stormed the building. The riot shield, a police officer turned around and smashed me with his shield and barged me through back into my bedroom up against the wall, and told me to sit down on the floor, which I did, but then he told me he didn't want me to sit there, he wanted me to sit against the wall, which I did, and then he said he didn't want me to sit against that wall, he wanted me to sit against the other wall. He just started screaming at me, and I just turned around and said, look mate, leave me alone, I'm not doing anything to you, just calm down. And it was all a bit chaotic. They got us out of the building, no arrests were made. We came back in, we locked the door and we just carried on.
And riot police just charging into the street and causing and creating a line just there from the little charity shop, the treasure trove, up to the Salvation Army. They did a line there, they had cars and vans in the street, they had a line just here across Ashley Road, they made a line up there. So obviously I go out and I try and talk to the riot police through the glass, through the plastic, and ask them what's going on, and nobody's telling me.
You've got to say, at 9 o'clock in the evening on a Thursday, it's the summer and we're in Stokes Croft. It is a very provocative act at the best of times to turn up with 36 police in full riot gear with a helicopter. I mean, most people of course assumed this was an eviction. There's been battles over this property before. The police also know that this is a very mixed community and all sorts of folks here, and part of that community, because it is such a free and open place, is that there are plenty of randoms, some politicised, some not, who are looking for trouble sometimes. And whether one approves of that or not, the police, if their issue is public order and public safety, should have been taking that into account in the way they conducted their operation, and I don't think that they did. I mean, if this had been a drugs bust, they'd have had just as many officers outside explaining to the public what was going on, and not in riot gear, but in normal uniform.
I was watching what looked like to be the guy coordinating it, who just seemed absolutely tired up, tanked up, seemed like he was some sort of marine on an exercise, charging backwards and forwards, dishing out orders and shouting at people. One of the things I noticed was that as things escalated and the police felt the need to actually really become much more assertive and aggressive. Some of the police officers obviously weren't into it. They were being told to be more aggressive, be more forceful. I heard that loads of times during the evening. Actually, no, push, go and do that, don't let them off, and things like that, where you could see obviously some police officers were really reticent about pushing it that far.
The riot police who had been against my window here, who had been begging to not scratch my windows with their shields, pushing people against my windows and into the cafe, which I wasn't very happy about. it's not for them to push people into my cafe. It's me who decides who comes in. So I came round and came to the front and tried to speak to them through the plastic and said, look, can you let me get them in and I'll close my door, I'll help you out here. Can you just let me get them in? Can you just go away? Can you please go away? At which point I was then shielded against my own window here.
And at the start, things were pretty calm, and it was really Stokes Croft vibe. There was people playing music, people just chatting, people chatting to the police officers. It just built and built, so it ended up like 15 vans parked here and horses, and the mood was really fluctuating between one of a bit of a party to one of real sort of tense sort of aggression.
At 9 o'clock on a Good Friday, when everyone is clearly drunk, I don't think that's the time to try and kick out a few squatters. That seems to me to be something different.
Yeah.
Seems to me to be something other than law enforcement. That seems to be riling the locals. I think they did come in heavy-handed. I think they could have chosen a much better time that may have avoided all of this violence.
Once the situation had started, the police again used very aggressive tactics, and those aggressive tactics inevitably spill over away from people who might have thrown a bottle or chucked a rock or lit a bin, but just to the people who are around, who are moving through. So there are, lots and lots of stories of people being screamed and shouted at, having weaponry waved in their face, and of course the shields. You can push someone away. That doesn't seem like an aggressive act, but I tell you, you have a 6'6" bloke in full kit, put a great big plastic shield in your face. I mean, this is common assault as far as I can see, legitimised under public order issues.
There was a lot of police, like bringing that many police in is going to get people angry, but I think the protesters were, I don't know how smashing people's stuff is getting at the police. It's just ridiculous. Like, I think the protesters were well out of order, and a lot of them weren't even from Stokes Croft. Mates had just rang them from across Bristol. They come here, damage our community and leave, and then we're stuck with it.
I've had friends that were injured, and funnily enough, they were nothing to do with the demonstrations. They were nothing to do with the so-called riot. They were in Left Bank, enjoying an acoustic night. A friend of mine and his girlfriend walked out, only for her to be pushed to the ground by a heavy-handed policeman. It's us against them. Clearly, this is what they want. I resent paying the wages of a police force that is that incompetent.
So I think the police are very culpable for their tactics at the beginning of the situation and during its escalation and during their conduct trying to manage it. And then the sort of pièce de résistance is that they then leave, I understand, around 3 o'clock in the morning. And my understanding is that the police did this because they felt that they had now become the problem.
And I think the exit was mad as well. They waited for 4 hours to leave, and then they all had to go up the A38. Police were completely gone from the streets and no police left at all. But bizarrely, they left a Range Rover, an empty police Range Rover, and a trailer parked outside Tesco's.
It wasn't about the squad, it wasn't about Tesco's, it wasn't about firebombs, whether they were there or not. People were now there to have a go at the police, and I think that was probably the first good call that they made all evening, and they withdrew. However, what did they think was going to happen? The situation having got to where it was, you then withdraw, and you leave Tesco's opposite the place that they bust earlier. And actually, I think it's a bit of a miracle that, Tesco's got off so lightly in that situation, with a certain amount of broken windows and shutters and so on, and that the place didn't get, frankly, didn't get torched.
Our message may have been lost in the violence of those who were just here for the violence. 1 million people peacefully protested against the invasion of Iraq. Nothing happened. Peaceful protest isn't working. If the authorities were listening to our point of view on things, we wouldn't resort to violence because things would change. Things are not changing. So violence seems to be the only answer.
At 5 a.m, there were people started coming out sweeping the streets, just trying to do something positive, and we just tried to join in with those guys, started sweeping up the mess, and so I was just trying to be a positive influence in a difficult situation. I know some people got really affected by it, and people that I know, friends of mine, actually were physically sick over the tension. They live actually on Stokes Croft. They could not get away from it, and it was just a really difficult situation for them.
We're all a little bit sick of police being hired thugs and getting away with whatever they want, and I think it's only going to get worse unless the police resume their duty as protectors of civilians.
There's so much rumour, uncertainty, and it remains an enduring public order issue, because what happens when Tesco's opens? I mean, I don't think this is over, and whether we like it or not, the world in Stokes Croft is not as it was a week ago. People's attitudes to all sorts of things have changed. I can't read the future, but I know that it's pretty unstable. So what are they going to do when Tesco's opens? How are they going to regain their legitimacy? And I just think the police need to come and speak very publicly and very honestly about their motivations, about the conduct of the operation, about why they made the decisions they did, and above all, to recognise where they could have done it differently.
Really annoying. I just want to go into my house. You're from me, move. Very nice.